it was late afternoon, like 5:30, something like that. And it was getting dark, and all the houses were dark, probably because a lot of people weren't even home yet. A lot of the houses were dark, and then we turned on the street, and all of a sudden, Christmas lights. I mean, this house must have thousands of Christmas lights. It just lit up the night, you know, and how cool that is. Maybe a little bit early, since it was before Thanksgiving, for some of us purists. But anyways, how cool that is for these Christmas lights to light up, and we love to look at them. But it's so much more than just that. Light has an important function to do, and that is light gets rid of the darkness. Light gets rid of the darkness. So we're going to talk about this as we talk about the symbol of Christmas, Christmas lights. It has to be one of our favorite symbols. It certainly does. So the first thing I want to point out is this, something pretty obvious. Light dispels the darkness. I can say, why do we have lights in our house? We don't want to sit in the dark all night long or all evening long, right? We don't want to sit in the dark. We want light. So we want lights on so it can get rid of the dark, because it's important that light dispels the darkness. But we also can say that, you know, sometimes people say we live in a dark world. They don't mean the sun stops shining. They mean a lot of bad things happen. You know, the anger, the hatred, the selfishness that we see often in the world makes this a dark world. And we listen to the, you know, the prayer requests that we got today, and we think, you know, once again, you know, this baby less than a month old passed away from the infection, and it's difficult. There's a pastor who lives in Hershey. His name's Michael Gingrich, and I was thinking about this too in another sense, because Michael has a son, Matthew, who now must be around 31 years of age. And the way in a book that Michael and Tom Caden wrote called Someone to Tell It To, Michael tells about his son, Matthew. He calls his son, in the book at the time, this was a couple of years ago, he calls his son a 2-year-old in a 26-year-old body. Severe autism, severe, you know, disabilities. And I was just thinking how hard it is. I mean, for someone who grew up, you know, basically in what we would call a normal situation, where our kids grew up, went to high school, they graduated, they went off to college, right? And maybe they came back a little bit after college, but then they got married and they moved out, you know. And we had that situation. We had that situation where when the last one moved out, you know, Carol cried. And I went, woohoo! I got my life back, you know? And that's how it goes. But I was thinking about that because Michael and his wife and Matthew can't even go to the bathroom. I mean, Matthew has a diaper, you know? And now 31 years of age, 24/7, they have to take care of him, they have to change his diaper, 24, you know? And I just think about this young man who has this disability, and it's just that reminder, just like Cora Pagano, you know, the little 1-month-old, less than 1-month-old girl. It's just this reminder that we live in this dark world. And then in John chapter 8, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. He came in to get rid of the darkness. Not the physical darkness. He came in to get rid of the spiritual darkness that's in this world. So Christmas lights remind us that Jesus is the light of the world. Christmas lights, how appropriate it's sort of this time of the year. Because, you know, this is the darkest time of the year. Now I'm talking actually physically. We have more nighttime now than any other time. Yesterday was the shortest day of the year. 9 hours and 17 minutes of daylight. Okay, hey, it only gets better from here, right? A little more each and every day. But, so that might be appropriate. But how appropriate also that we have Christmas lights that remind us. Jesus is the light of the world. He came in to get rid of the darkness. One day he'll fully do it. But he came into the world to get rid of the darkness. Brings us to our next point, which is this. The light, Jesus, the light came in love. The light came in love. He came down to earth. God could have looked out at us and said, oh gosh, there they go again, they messed up again. I want nothing to do with them. Yet he sent the light. He sent his Son into our world because he loves us. He loves us. So 1 John chapter 4 reminds us of this, beginning of verse 9. God's love was revealed among us in this way. How was it revealed? God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. And this is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us. And he sent his Son, that's Christmas, to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. He loves us. Here's another Christmas reminder that he loves us. I don't know. We know it's maybe not one of the more popular. The holly and the ivy, right? It's a Christmas symbol. Why is the holly and the ivy a Christmas symbol? Well, the ivy is because the ivy likes to cling to things. It's always a reminder we need to cling to Jesus. But the holly's sort of, they're prickly leaves and they're, what's this have to do with Christmas? Well, the holly's interesting because it reminds us, and the prickly leaves remind us actually of the crown of thorns that Jesus wore when he was crucified. The red berries remind us of the blood that Jesus shed. Because even at Christmas time, we need to remember that Jesus came to die. Why? Because he loves you. Because he loves you. That's why he came. You see, the darkness wants to say that you're not lovable. The darkness wants to say you're not smart enough to be lovable, you're not good looking enough to be lovable, you're not strong enough to be whatever, you're not enough to be lovable. That's what the darkness says. And yet Christmas says, wait, that's not true, you are lovable. Christmas reminds us that no matter what, we are lovable. The lights, the Christmas lights remind us that we are lovable. The holly reminds us he came to love you. If you get nothing else, I hope you get from today that you're loved by God. Christmas should remind you that you're loved by God, because way too many people go through life thinking they're unlovable. You're loved by God. He did all that. As much as for anyone else, as much as for John Wesley or Billy Graham or Mother Teresa, he died for you as much as he did for them. So you indeed are loved. And that brings us to our third point. So if the second point is the light came in love, the third point is the light needs to shine. The light needs to shine. How do we shine the light? We express love and we give love to others. So again, 1 John 4. Beloved, since God loved us so much, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is perfected in us. So we need to let our light shine. We do that by loving others. Matthew reminds us, or Jesus reminds us in Matthew on the Sermon on the Mount, in the 5th chapter, He says, you are the light of the world, he tells them. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. We're called to shine our light of love. Why? Because God loved us. Jesus loved us. So we shine our light. We shine our light of love. But sometimes, and there's so many Christians who don't shine. Why don't we shine? There's probably a lot of reasons. Let me give you just two of them. One is sometimes we don't shine because we don't know what to say. Somebody's hurting, we don't know what to say, we don't know what to do. So we just sort of hang back. But sometimes we don't let our light shine because we don't even notice the other person. We're so busy in our own little world that we don't even notice. But let me tell you a little secret about ministry, okay? To make it all a little bit easier, or a lot easier, actually. 90% of ministry is just showing up. 90% of ministry, it's just being there. You know, I am Fred Rogers, you know, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. He said this one time. He said, in times of stress, the best thing we can do for each other is to listen with our ears and our hearts, to be assured that our questions are just as important as our answers. You see, I used to think that I'm the pastor. If somebody comes to me with a problem, I'm supposed to have the answer. And then I realized people came to me with very complicated problems and difficult issues, and I didn't know the answer. It's taken me about this long to finally realize I don't need to have the answer. I just need to be there. Paul writes in Romans chapter 12, he says, you know, what's our task? He says, we mourn with those who mourn, and we rejoice with those who rejoice. By the way, the mourning's easier than the rejoicing because we tend to get jealous. But if you can do both those things, if you can mourn with those who mourn, and rejoice with those who rejoice, that's a fantastic ministry. Just to be there. So I was trying to think, in the last couple months, it's been on my mind. You know, every Tuesday evening, AA meets across the street. Alcoholics Anonymous meets across the street. I've been trying to think, what can we do as a church to help them? And maybe what can they do to help us? You know, how can we work together? And I racked my brain. Nothing was coming. For weeks. It wasn't like I was really thinking about it a whole lot, but, you know, it's just sort of in the back of my mind, but I couldn't think of anything. And then just a couple weeks ago, God said, you know what you need to do? Just go. It's like, well, I don't know what to say. Just go. So last Tuesday, I went to the AA meeting. I didn't just go. I talked to the leader. There are open and closed AA meetings. This was an open one, which means that non-alcoholics can attend. So that's fine. So I just went. And one of the things I really want to let you know, and one of the things that was just filled my heart so much, is just their appreciation for you guys, right, and gals, allowing them to use that building. There were like 21 of them there, and I'm sitting there, if you know the Annex House, I'm sitting there and crammed with about 2/3 of them in the dining room area, okay, and the rest are sort of in the living room and around the corner. You can't even see everybody. You know, they're crammed in there, and yet they're saying, we thank you so much for allowing us to use that house. Thank you so much. And what a joy it was to hear them tell their testimonies, and how many of those testimonies included faith. You know, they stayed sober because of prayer and faith, and for many of them. And it was just such a cool thing, which I would have missed if I didn't show up. It was just, I didn't say much. I didn't have to say much. I was just there. Never discount your ministry of just being there. For whom do you need to just be there this week? I mean, this is Christmas week. So many of us are going to be getting together with family, maybe with some friends, go with family, and there might be somebody who's going through a difficult time, that sort of thing. And then, who can you just be there for? Who can you just listen to? Keep your eyes open to see how people are, and then maybe somebody just needs a listening ear. Not somebody to have all their answers, just to listen. So I told you about Michael Gingrich's son, Matthew. And on their street, where they live, they have a house that has lots of Christmas lights as well. And Matthew likes it when they come on. Well, this is what Michael writes. And when each evening's moment comes, you know it no matter where you are in the house. The effervescent squealing, the rhythmic clapping, the dancing around the house, the step staccato, loud, repeated, it's pure joy, pure delight on his face, and it happens every single night. He waits for the lights. During the darkest days of the year, he stands and waits, transfixed by those lights brightening the dim winter sky. For all his limitations in the world's view, his severe mental disabilities, his autism, his 2-year-old mind and a 26-year-old body, his inability to speak, Matthew knows something very profound. That light will shine in the darkness. No matter how dark or how long the wait, eventually and without fail, those lights will shine again. No matter how many seasons of the year without them, there will come a season when those lights will shine again. They always do. Life brings its own seasons of darkness. Just desperate at times, lonely, painful, full of fear. But despite those seasons, a new season will come, and the light will be seen again. Whatever darkness I find within and around me, I look to my Son. And I remember that a light can pierce that darkness and can begin to bring beauty and joy again. In that, I find great hope each and every day. Amen.